Imagine for a second that you are a digital archaeologist.
Oh, I like that.
Right. And you are like digging through the source code of completely isolated computer systems.
Okay.
So you boot up this mainframe that was built in a highly advanced, robotics lab in modern-day Tokyo.
Yeah.
And then you cross-reference that with some dusty, rudimentary server wired together in a 1970s California garage.
Two completely different worlds.
Exactly. The programmers behind these machines, they never spoke, they never met, they didn't even use the same underlying programming languages.
Right. There's zero connection.
Zero. But buried deep in the foundational architecture of both systems, you find the exact same lines of code.
Wow.
Word for word, character for character. And it forces this fundamental question.
Which is whether it's just a crazy coincidence or...
Or are you looking at the absolute non-negotiable blueprint for how a functional system simply has to be built?
I see where you're going with this.
Because today on the Deep Dive, we are looking at a code that isn't written in ones and zeros. It's written in geometry.
Yeah, and specifically, we are tracking a very specific geometric sequence. It's the manifestation of the advanced cut of the diamond theory.
Right.
And we are basically following a single shape that acts as this universal code.
And what is that shape?
It is the 8-pointed star.
The 8-pointed star.
Exactly. Our mission for today's deep dive is to trace this very specific geometry across completely disparate eras, disciplines, and cultures.
Because it just shows up everywhere, right?
It really does. We are going to examine its functional use in Islamic iconography, and then we'll analyze its astronomical precision in the Aztec civilization.
Which is wild, just those two alone.
Oh, it gets deeper. Then we're going to pull it inward to see how it structures the deep architecture of human psychology.
Through Carl Jung, right?
Right, through Jung's frameworks. And from there, we'll look at its physical application as an energetic anchor in ancient Asian stone monuments. Its spontaneous emergence in modern phenomena like the Wiltshire crop circles.
Yes.
And finally, we'll get into the actual biological mechanism of how this geometry organizes your own DNA and even the molecular structure of the water inside your cells.
Have you ever noticed a shape that just seems to follow humanity everywhere? Like, no matter the time period, no matter the distance between cultures.
It's hard to ignore once you see it.
What if that shape isn't just art? What if it's a literal physical blueprint for how your thoughts shape reality?
That's the real question.
So we have a shape that transcends cultural diffusion, geographical boundaries, even physical mediums. It shows up in stone, in wheat, in the mind, and in our biology.
Yeah.
Let's start with the earliest historical evidence from the source material. We see it really prominently in a symbol known as the Rub el Hiz.
Right, the Rub el Hiz. So visually, if you picture it, it's constructed from two overlapping squares.
Okay, two squares.
But one is rotated at a 45-degree angle.
Oh, so it forms that perfect, symmetrical, 8-pointed star.
Exactly, and often it has a central circle inside it. And in the functional architecture of the Quran, this isn't just decorative artwork.
It's not just, like, nice to look at.
No, it serves a highly precise structural purpose. It acts as a navigational marker.
How so?
It delineates the end of a quarter of a hizbi.
And his hizbi is a division of the text.
Right. It's designed to pace the recitation of the verses. Traditional Arabic calligraphers adopted this geometry to mark the absolute completion of entire chapters.
It functions as, like, a geometric period at the end of a divine sentence.
That is a great way to put it, yes. And that structural finality is exactly why it became so deeply embedded in the culture of the Islamic kings who ruled the Andalusian region of Spain.
Okay.
They recognized the inherent stability of that shape because think about a square.
Right, 4 corners.
Exactly. It represents foundational grounding. It's solid. It's immovable.
Yeah.
So when you duplicate and interlock that foundation, you are projecting an architecture of absolute completion and harmonic balance.
That makes total sense.
It became the emblem of their reign. You see it woven into their flags, their coinage, and the intricate masonry of their palaces.
It represented a society that saw itself as fully realized.
Fully realized, both culturally and spiritually, yes.
Okay, so that makes geometric sense.
Yeah.
Locking 2 squares together to signify a closed, complete system.
Right.
But this is where the isolation of our metaphorical computer systems comes into play.
The cross-referencing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because if we cross the Atlantic Ocean and step back into a completely different timeline, we land right in the middle of the Aztec Empire in Mesoamerica.
2 cultures separated by an impassable ocean.
Completely.
Yeah.
Operating under wildly different cosmologies, different technological frameworks. And yet
carved into the massive basalt of the Aztec sunstones,
yes,
which functioned as the central operating system for their entire civilization, is that exact same 8-pointed star.
the identical overlapping squares.
Exactly. And this overlap, it forces us to eliminate the theory of cultural plagiarism.
Yeah, I mean, there were no transatlantic trade routes sharing sacred geometry back then.
No, absolutely not. So we have to look at what the Aztecs were actually using the symbol for. And for them, it was archaeoastronomy.
Archaeoastronomy. Okay, so mapping the stars.
Right. They weren't using it to pace the reading of a text. They were using it to map the multidimensional mechanics of the cosmos onto a flat, two-dimensional plane.
How does that map onto the 8 points exactly?
Well, the 4 cardinal points of the star align with north, south, east, and west.
Okay, pretty standard.
But the east and west points lock in the exact horizon markers for the rising and setting sun on the equinoxes.
Oh, wow. But wait, the equinoxes are only 2 days out of the year, right?
Right.
I feel like for an agrarian society, tracking the extremes is where the real survival math comes in. You need to know when winter is coming.
Which is exactly why the 4 diagonal points of that overlapping square are non-negotiable for them. The northeast, southeast, northwest, and southwest points on the Aztec calendar mark the absolute extreme azimuths of the rising and setting sun on the solstices.
So it's tracking the furthest points the sun reaches.
Exactly. For civilizations situated closer to the equator, like the Aztecs, the pendulum swing of the sun along the horizon between the summer and winter solstices is a massive, highly visible event.
Yeah, you'd see it move across the landscape.
Right. You are tracking a 3-dimensional celestial sphere from a fixed point on a rotating planet. The math required to accurately project those horizon limits into a workable 2-dimensional tracking tool mathematically demands the geometry of the 8-pointed star.
Okay, let me push back on this idea of mathematical inevitability for a second.
Go for it.
I understand the geometry works perfectly for tracking azimuths. I get that the sun does what the sun does.
Yeah.
But the decision to use squares, specifically locking 2 squares together rather than just drawing, say, 8 intersecting lines, or a circle with 8 notches in it, it feels highly specific. It's like finding out 2 totally isolated tech companies invented the exact same save icon independently.
The floppy disk.
Yeah. Is this just the convergent evolution of geometry, where any civilization staring at the sky long enough naturally gravitates toward intersecting squares? Or is there, like, an underlying human instinct at play here?
Well, the source material suggests it's a synthesis of both.
Okay.
The geometric convergence happens because the ratio of the diagonals to the sides of the square naturally aligns with the angular tracking of those celestial movements.
So the math is just elegant.
It's mathematically elegant, yes. But the choice to represent it as interlocking squares speaks to how the human mind categorizes spatial reality.
How so?
Well, think about it. The square is humanity's primary tool for imposing order on chaos.
Oh, it's true.
We build square rooms, square foundations, square grids for our cities.
We don't really build circles naturally.
Right. So when a civilization wants to map the ultimate chaos of the moving heavens, they project their ultimate symbol of order onto it. They duplicate it and rotate it to capture the full spectrum of movement.
It is the human mind externalizing its own structural logic onto the universe.
Exactly. Externalizing internal logic.
And that concept, externalizing internal logic, brings us straight into the architecture of the human mind itself.
Which is exactly where Carl Jung enters this equation.
Right. Jung spent a massive portion of his career, especially during the writing of his Red Book, analyzing the spontaneous emergence of these geometric forms in the human psyche.
Right, and he categorized them as mandalas.
Yes, mandalas.
Yeah.
And he defined a mandala not just as art, but as the graphical representation of the center.
The self.
The self. And he meant the self as the totality of the psyche, completely distinct from the conscious ego.
Jung's clinical observations are so crucial here. He noticed that his patients, and even himself, during periods of intense psychological disequilibrium.
Basically when they were super stressed or traumatized?
Exactly. During those times, they would spontaneously dream of or feel compelled to draw these highly structured concentric geometries.
And it wasn't just his modern European patients doing it.
No, not at all. This is the exact same psychological impulse that drives Tibetan monks to construct excruciatingly detailed 8-pointed sand mandalas.
Or like medieval architects designing those vast fractal-like rose windows in Gothic cathedrals.
Precisely. The impulse is universal because the hardware is universal.
Here's where it gets really interesting to me. It's like looking into a kaleidoscope.
Okay, I like that analogy.
The colored glass in the kaleidoscope, that's our daily chaos, right?
Yeah.
It's our ego. It keeps shifting. It's noisy. It's unpredictable.
Yeah.
But that central, multifaceted geometric structure that the glass falls into, that never moves.
Are we saying this 8-pointed geometry is hard-coded into our psychology?
That is essentially what Jung is arguing. He states the mandala has a metaphysical nature. It acts as an anchor.
An anchor for the mind. Right. To use your analogy, the ego is the chaotic, shifting glass. It's the intrusive thoughts, the fluctuating emotions.
The stress of just getting through the day.
Exactly. But beneath that noise, there is an underlying structure. Jung suggests that when the mind attempts to self-regulate, when it tries to visualize its own absolute center to keep from collapsing under the weight of that chaos.
It doesn't conjure a human face or a soothing landscape.
No. It conjures rigid, concentric geometry. The 8-pointed star isn't just an astronomical tool. It is the load-bearing pillar of human consciousness.
That's just wild to think about. And you can see this happen in real time, completely unconsciously.
Oh,
think about your own subconscious behaviors.
Yeah.
Like, think about the doodles you draw when you're trapped on a long phone call.
Oh, the conference call doodles.
Exactly.
Wow.
Your conscious mind is bored, slightly dissociated. You have a pen and a notepad. You aren't consciously deciding to create art.
But you start drawing.
You draw a square, then a square inside that, then you draw lines radiating out from the center, maybe forming a star.
Right.
Without any conscious direction, your brain starts running its default screensaver. And that screensaver is a mandala.
Your subconscious is actively self-soothing by projecting its foundational geometry onto the paper.
It's an incredible psychological defense mechanism.
But it goes deeper than defense.
Mm.
Jung viewed the mandala as an archetype of wholeness.
Okay.
When the conscious mind is fragmented, the unconscious projects this geometry to provide a template for integration. It's offering a blueprint for how to return to a state of equilibrium.
So the 8-pointed geometry provides a center point with equidistant outward expansions. It mirrors a perfectly balanced nervous system.
Exactly. And this mental architecture doesn't just stay in our heads or on our sketch pads.
Right.
When empires build monuments to last forever, this is the blueprint they use.
Which brings us to the concept of frequency anchors in historical architecture.
Yes. If we look at the discoveries highlighted by the polymath Robert Edward Grant, the application of this geometry in imperial construction is profound.
Especially when analyzing the Fu lions.
The Buddha lions, yes. The ones that guard the Forbidden City in Beijing.
These statues are legendary. They are massive, imposing, stylized stone lions standing at the entrances of the most critical pavilions in the Forbidden City.
Right. But the focus isn't on the biological form of the lion itself.
No, it's on the geometric pedestal it stands on.
Grant observed that the foundational blocks beneath these guardians feature a very deliberate carving.
It's a primary square, and resting directly on top of it is a representation of a rug, rotated exactly 45 degrees.
Forming a perfect, unmistakable 8-pointed star.
The exact same Rub el Hiz, marking the Quranic chapters.
Yes.
The exact same Aztec compass, marking the solstices.
Sitting right under the paws of the Ming Dynasty's imperial guardians.
Yeah, I have to play devil's advocate here.
I figured you would.
Isn't it possible these are just aesthetically pleasing shapes? I mean, stacking a square on a square is structurally easy. It provides a solid weight distribution for a multi-ton statue. Are we reading too much into a stone rug under a lion statue?
It's a fair question. But that utilitarian argument ignores the obsessive ritualization of these ancient builders.
How so?
The Ming Dynasty's approach to imperial architecture was dictated by the strictest applications of feng shui and cosmological geomancy.
Okay, so it wasn't just throwing stones together.
Not at all. The Forbidden City was engineered to be the terrestrial reflection of the celestial order. Nothing is left to aesthetic accident.
Right.
They didn't separate physics from metaphysics. To them, structural integrity and energetic integrity were the exact same science.
So what does the stone rug actually do, according to this theory?
Well, materials like granite and marble possess specific resonant frequencies. By carving that exact geometry into the foundational stone, the architects were creating a localized energetic field.
So the lion is the visual symbol of protection for the human mind to process.
But the 8-pointed star is the actual geometric engine doing the energetic work. It acts as a frequency anchor, guarding the space geometrically.
It's an energetic firewall.
That's exactly what it is. And you can see this continuing in modern applications too, like the Blue Temple in Chiang Rai, Thailand.
Oh, the Blue Temple is visually stunning. It's an absolute sensory overload of fractal geometry.
And that overlapping square motif is woven deeply into the very fabric of the building's layout.
It's designed to literally shift the brainwaves of anyone who walks into the space, right?
Because geometry informs acoustics, it informs light refraction and ultimately the electromagnetic field of the space itself.
So when you walk into a structure built on the proportions of the eight-pointed star,
your body's bioelectric field interacts with the resonant frequency of that architecture. The building is essentially acting as a macro mandala.
so it's initiating that same psychological equilibrium Jung identified, but doing it from the outside in.
Precisely.
Which, okay, that opens up a truly wild avenue of thought.
Here we go.
Because if human consciousness can build physical geometry to alter the environment, can consciousness project geometry directly into the environment without the stonemasons?
You're talking about the events of June 2023.
Yes. The sequence involving Robert Edward Grant and the sudden manifestation of these geometries in the crop fields of Wiltshire, England.
This is a fascinating part of the source material, and we should be clear, we are just impartially reporting the questions raised by these sources.
Right. We aren't saying aliens did it. We aren't saying it was magic. We are looking at the sequence of events and the implications.
Exactly. Because the timeline challenges our fundamental understanding of physics and consciousness.
Walk us through the timeline.
Okay, on June 9th, 2023, Grant published a digital rendering online. It was a 5D geometric construction box that he named Melchizedek's Pentaract.
Okay, pause. A 5D geometric construction box. We need to unpack that for a second.
Sure.
To understand this mathematically, let's start small. We all know a 2D square.
Right, flat on a piece of paper.
And we can conceptualize a 3D cube. We live in a 3D world.
Right, then mathematically we can map a 4D tesseract.
Which adds a spatial axis our brains cannot even visually process.
Exactly. And the pentaract adds yet another axis of spatial dimension on top of that.
And so it's 5D.
Yes. It is a highly complex theoretical web of vertices and edges operating completely outside our observable reality.
Okay, so he posts this hyper-complex 5D mathematical structure online.
Yeah.
And then in the comment section of his own post, he actively speculates.
Right, he notes a historical pattern. He realized that geometric concepts he focuses on have seemingly manifested as physical crop circles shortly after he publishes them.
He explicitly wonders if a 3D shadow of this 5D shape might appear in the fields the very next day.
And we should note, mathematically, the 3D projection of a 5D pentaract forms an octagonal 8-pointed design.
So he essentially called his shot, like Babe Ruth pointing at the bleachers, but with multidimensional geometry.
You could say that, yeah. Because within 48 hours of that digital publication, an intricate, massive octagonal geometric design was discovered flattened into a crop field in Wiltshire.
Right near Stonehenge.
Yes, directly adjacent to Stonehenge. And the geometry of the crop circle directly correlated with the projection of the 5D pentaract he had just theorized.
Let's dissect the mechanics of this. Because honestly, the who is almost irrelevant compared to the how.
What do you mean?
Even if human pranksters made it, even if a team of highly coordinated people saw his post, grabbed their GPS equipment and their wooden planks, and ran out into the dark to flatten the weed, the chain of causality is still mind-bending.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
The pattern started as a 5-dimensional mathematical concept in his consciousness. It translated into digital data on a server. It implanted itself into the consciousness of the humans who saw it, and it compelled them to physically alter the biological structure of a wheat field to match the geometry.
The pattern forced its way from the internet into physical wheat.
Exactly.
You're describing the macro application of the observer effect.
Explain that.
In quantum mechanics, the act of observation collapses the wave function, which determines the physical state of a particle. If we scale that up, the focused consciousness on a specific high-order geometry acted as the catalyst. It collapsed probability into physical reality.
So whether it was human pranksters or
some localized electromagnetic plasma phenomenon, which is a leading theory in crop circle formation. The origination point was consciousness projecting an energetic blueprint.
And the visual of this happening right next to Stonehenge is just incredible.
It really is.
You have Neolithic builders who dragged megaliths for miles to map the solar cycles.
Just like the Aztecs.
Exactly. Sitting right next to a modern overnight imprint of an 8-pointed shadow cast by a 5D thought.
The universe is definitely trying to tell us something about this geometry.
It's screaming at us that this specific shape is the bridge between the immaterial and the material.
Yes.
Which brings up the biggest question of all. If a thought can force a pattern into a field of wheat, What is it doing to the biological field of our own bodies?
How does this geometry bridge the gap between our abstract emotions and our physical DNA?
Yeah, exactly. This leads us to the most intimate architecture of all, our genetic code, and the work of Richard Rudd.
Right. Richard Rudd and the system known as the gene keys.
And the mathematical correlation here is immediate, isn't it?
Very much so. The gene keys system is built on an architecture of exactly 64 distinct keys.
64, which is notably 8 times 8.
Echoing the 8-pointed star math, the entire system is a fractal expansion of that original geometry.
It's everywhere.
It really is. This 64-part matrix perfectly aligns with the 64 hexagrams of the ancient I Ching.
Okay.
And crucially, it mirrors the exact 64 codons that make up the human genetic code.
Wait, so the math of the universe, the math of the 8-pointed star, is literally the math of our DNA.
Precisely. That is the core premise.
Wow.
Rudd's framework posits that our DNA is not a static read-only hard drive. It is highly responsive to frequency.
How does the system map that out?
Well, each of the 64 gene keys represents an archetypal blueprint of human behavior and biology, and each key operates across 3 distinct levels of frequency.
What are the levels?
They are the shadow, the gift, and the CD.
CD, that's a Sanskrit word, right?
Yes. It roughly translates to ultimate knowledge, accomplishment, or spiritual coherence.
Okay, so the theory of the Diamond A-Spire that the source mentions, it suggests that biological evolution requires passing through the density of the shadow to unlock the higher geometry of the gift.
Yes, it requires looking deeply into our own suffering to eventually attain that CD state.
Let's use the specific example from the text to ground this. Gene key 40.
Good example.
The shadow state of gene key 40 is exhaustion.
A very common state.
Very. The gift state is resolve. And the city state is divine will.
Right.
Now, practically speaking, I have to clarify this for the listener. This sounds a bit like a video game skill tree.
Level up from exhaustion to divine will.
Yeah, exactly. But how does an abstract 8x8 grid actually alter our physical reality? How does this help someone who is listening right now and feeling completely burned out?
Well, we have to look at the neurobiology of these states. This is about raising consciousness, energy, vibration, and frequency. It is an internal map.
Okay, walk us through the biology of it.
Think about when you are operating in the shadow frequency of exhaustion.
I feel heavy, dense.
Right. Your body is literally vibrating differently. Your sympathetic nervous system is heavily engaged.
Fight or flight.
Exactly. It's flooding your bloodstream with cortisol and adrenaline. Your breathing becomes shallow. Your cellular metabolism becomes totally inefficient.
It's chaos.
It is chaos. The electromagnetic field generated by your heart and brain becomes highly erratic and incoherent. You are physically manifesting the disorganized, tumbling glass of that kaleidoscope you mentioned earlier.
Wow. You feel heavy because your biological frequency is literally dense and uncoordinated.
Yes. Your cells are essentially fighting each other for resources because there is no central geometry organizing the system.
But then, what happens when you shift? When you move to the gift of resolve?
When you utilize this contemplative geometry, when you consciously choose to shift your awareness and embody resolve, you initiate a biological cascade.
Because resolve isn't just a poetic word.
No, it is a neurological state of focused coherence. You shift into parasympathetic dominance.
Rest and digest.
Right. Your heart rate variability smooths out into a rhythmic sine wave. The microelectromagnetic field generated by your firing neurons literally reorganizes.
You're shifting your frequency.
By holding that higher frequency of intent, you are sending a coherent bioelectric signal to the 64 codons of your DNA.
You are literally unlocking new potential within your biological makeup.
You are downregulating inflammatory genes and upregulating genes associated with cellular repair. You are actively reprogramming the software.
That is incredible. But here is the missing link for me.
What's that?
What is the actual physical mechanism in the body that carries that new bioelectric signal? How does a non-physical thought, like resolve, exert physical force on genetic material inside a cell?
The translation medium is water. And this is where the science of cymatics integrates perfectly with our biology. Have you ever seen the videos from the Revival of Wisdom account mentioned in the text?
Oh, yes, where they play sound frequencies over plates of sand or water.
Exactly. Cymatics is the study of visible sound. It proves that physical reality is created out of frequency, vibration, and energy.
Because every vibration has its own specific geometric pattern.
Yes. When you run specific acoustic or electromagnetic frequencies through a medium, it spontaneously organizes into complex symmetrical geometry.
And the higher and more coherent the frequency, the more complex the geometry.
Right. Now, when you run those frequencies through liquid water, the water molecules physically link up into beautiful, intricate mandalas.
They form perfect Rubel-Hibbs. They form 8-pointed stars.
They structure themselves based entirely on the vibrational input. And crucially, the human body is roughly 80% water.
Wait, so the human body is basically a programmable liquid crystal.
We are highly conductive, saline-filled vessels. We are walking, talking, cymatic experiments.
Our mind is blown.
Every thought you think, every word you speak, every emotion you feel is a vibrational frequency.
Because every time a neuron fires, it creates a microelectromagnetic pulse.
Yes. Since your brain is constantly firing, your entire central nervous system is functioning as a massive broadcasting antenna.
Transmitting bioelectric frequencies directly into the water inside me.
Into the structured water that surrounds every single cell, every protein, and every strand of DNA in your body. Your mind is literally a manifesting supercomputer.
So, let me get this straight. If I spend my morning complaining about traffic, obsessing over anger, trapped in the shadow of exhaustion,
you are broadcasting a discordant, chaotic frequency into your own internal ocean.
I am literally scrambling the geometry of the water in my own cells.
Yes, the water responds by losing its geometric structure, which inhibits cellular communication and essentially creates disease.
But if I hold the frequency of the 8-pointed star, if I hold the frequency of balance and completion,
when you set your mind to a state of resolve or gratitude or coherence, you are broadcasting a frequency that structures the water in your body into exact sacred geometry.
I am carving sacred geometry into my own biology.
The water molecules align into that 8-pointed star, and this structured water acts as an optimal conductor, transferring those bioelectric signals from your nervous system directly into your DNA with zero distortion.
Unlocking the genetic gifts Rudd talks about in the Gene Keys.
Exactly.
This completely redefines the term mindset.
It does. It's not just an attitude.
No, it is a mechanical term. It means you are literally setting your mind, tuning your neurological antenna to a specific frequency, which then repatterns your internal water, which in turn interacts with the external reality.
Think about the imagery of playing those frequencies through water and watching the liquid spontaneously form perfect mandalas. That is happening inside your veins right now based on how you are feeling.
The absolute profound nature of that mechanism.
Yeah.
The exact same overlapping squares that the Aztec priests used to align their empire with the sun.
The same geometry Islamic calligraphers used to mark the completion of the holy word.
The exact same structural anchor Jung identified as the center of human sanity, is literally assembling itself inside the water of your veins the moment you choose to hold a coherent thought.
You are the stonemason, and your thoughts are the sound waves carving the geometry of your own biology.
It proves that the advanced cut isn't just an abstraction on a page. It is the fundamental operating system of reality.
The universe uses the 8-pointed star to maintain balance across all scales of existence, from the macromechanics of galaxies and crop circles all the way down to the micromechanics of your genetic expression.
We started this deep dive looking for a universal code, and we found it embedded in everything from ancient stone to modern wheat fields.
But the most powerful realization is that this code isn't just something you observe. It is something you actively generate. You are the architect of your own internal geometry.
If every single passing thought you have creates a literal geometric ripple in the biological water of your own body, what happens when 8 billion human supercomputers on this planet finally decide to tune their antennas to the exact same frequency of resolve, love, and divine will at the exact same time?
What kind of geometry would that create in the world?
That is something to think about. Until next time.